The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and/or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated, yes.
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my tickets!
Everybody loves Hypno Toad.
Scary dog!
Pearson at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast, TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show is Black Mirror, Season 6, brought to you by the good people at Zeppatron, House of Tomorrow, and Broke and Bones. Season 6 was commissioned in 2022 and was released on June 15th, 2023 on Netflix. It consists of 5 episodes, which is 2 more than season 5 and 1 less than seasons 3 and 4. And joining me on this journey tonight is my brother from another mother and hetero life mate, my primary partner in crime. Ladies and gentlemen, he is part man, part chat GPT. It's Jesse Starcher. How do you do?
Truer words were never spoken.
I just listened to the source material we did for Supergirl, where you where you were like, "How do I talk to my friend about his passive aggressiveness in Chat GPT?" Oh my god, I forgot we did that. I was laughing my ass off.
It's good stuff, man. It's so
That
good.
was funny.
Yeah, this is going to be, and this is why I wanted to talk about this season, and I'm glad you chose to make it a little bit quicker than what it was scheduled originally. I think you had it scheduled in October. Is that right? Is that when you had it originally?
It's September, which means we don't have a lot of movies to discuss. We have even less now because I was cutting stuff left and right because Jesse, I just don't want to talk about things I don't want to talk about anymore.
I understand.
So there was plenty of spaces on the calendar to talk television because September we usually take movies off.
Right. Well, anyway, the whole AI thing is kind of blown up in my eyes here recently, so I'm glad we get to talk about it now because I do have, we're going to at least have one episode we could talk about some technology. As for these other ones, who knows? Yeah,
you and I were chatting before the show started about how Black Mirror Season 6 is a large departure from the central theme of this show. It's a horror anthology show, but the whole point of Black Mirror is it's about technology. It's about technology. The Black Mirror, the cell phone. First time I've ever done props on my show, unlike the rest of you dorks. But the point of it is it's looking at modern technology and seeing how it could run amok, go awry, cause troubles and problems. When you pitched this to me way back in the yesteryear of 2011? Holy crap.
No,
that far back?
No. Dude, I wasn't on here until 2014. So
I was going to say
probably 2015, 2016. Maybe.
Yeah, we must have gone back and it must have been on Netflix for a while. And you were like, I just watched this. You should watch it too. And I was like, Jesse Starcher, I don't want to watch your crazy television show. You ain't got no class. You ain't got no culture. And you're like, listen, Radulich, dumbass. You're going to want to watch this. And the first episode, president's the prime minister or whatever is fucking a pig. Well, if I had known there was pig fucking on this show, you'd have sold me so much easier. Now you're a smart guy. You're a thoughtful guy. And, you're a guy I can sort of discuss the pros and cons of technology and, futurism, essentially. He's the futurist. Which it does beg the question, what brought you to Black Mirror in the first place? And then why were you like, holy crap, this, if I never discuss anything else with Radulich, this I have to discuss.
Right, dude. Well, I've always been a fan of kind of like the sci-fi, mostly the sci-fi anthology series. Twilight Zone's a good one. There's a bunch of other ones out there, but Twilight Zone's going to stick out in my mind the most. And watching Black Mirror, it definitely put me in the mindset of that, but it also is a great way to kind of show you, we talk about how technology runs awry. It's more about the human race and how we use technology.
Right. It's essentially, it's like, look, here's this hammer. Well, this hammer could help you build things, or it could be a murder weapon. It's all in the hands of the user.
Exactly. And I think why I thought it was going to be such good topical conversation. Number one, we are embracing technology every day. We are getting in the social media, and Black Mirror doesn't shy away from those nascent things. And these are 1 hour shows. They're stuff we can get in and get out with. So that obviously lends to
the first 2 seasons that we did were like 3 episodes long.
Right. Yeah. So I knew that. I remember, I think the one that sold me and made me think, okay, I want to talk to Mark about this was White Christmas, the one with John Hamm and putting your mind inside of and they were using that as a prison.
Right.
It was a great concept. And I find that these shows usually take that concept and spin it in an interesting way to make the watcher come away with thoughts of like, okay, what, is, if that's possible, is this a way that this can be used? And a lot of times you're going to find yourself going, yeah, that's probably how things could end up if we ever reach that point. There was a great episode where I think, speaking again to the whole putting my mind in a robot body, they almost kind of did that, where they cloned somebody's Facebook and all these other social media posts and then put that into the basically life model decoy of a guy who had passed away. And it was a great show, and it made you think about humans and their relationship to AI and technology. So
we've had some really, like, this in the Orville sparked some real interesting, like, moral and ethical, like, conversations dealing in moral and ethics and the use of technology, and what, again, going back to like the hammer metaphor, in the hands of person A, this could be really, really useful and push us forward and take us into new places. And then in the hands of person B, it becomes an absolute nightmare. The first episode, I mean, I made a joke because I'm me about like the prime minister having to fuck the pig, but that whole episode was about how you can essentially take an entire country hostage and hide your identity and location. Like it was something along the lines of they were using the tracking technology, and he kept fooling the tracking technology, and they never could find the guy. And like it was like, okay, we can't find him, we can't stop him from doing what he's doing, and I kind of have to give in and make into his demands and have sex with this pig, and it was and then the whole thing was like just to see if he could do it, and like and we talk about like what a nightmare that is. Another episode that always jumped out at me as we've been talking about these for a couple of years now was the one, and I think about this a lot, especially if you're in a relationship with somebody who has a skewed memory. When you have a conversation about something that happened previously, and they're like, well, I remember it this way, and you're like, it's not how that went. It was like I think it's Charlie Brooker who has like the lenses in his eyes that can record everything, and he's like, and then you could just project him on screen. So he's like, nope, that's not what happened. So imagine, we talked about this. Like, imagine like you're with your spouse, and like we talked about how there are times where it's just not worth correcting your partner. It's not worth getting into that fight because like it's correcting them is almost worse than the fight itself, and just like just take the loss
let
on
it
this.
go.
Right. Yeah. And where does Charlie Brooker end up at the end of that episode? Alone, like his wife left him. And all he has is these recorded memories, and it's like, the I think I said it at the time, like the Dan Birbiglia line about, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? The episode where you can upload your consciousness into the virtual reality game, and like the two buddies
Oh,
playing
yeah.
like Street Fighter, and they ended up like having sex in the game.
Anthony Mackie
Yeah.
was in that episode.
And like Yaween Abdul, whatever the hell his name is, Mateen, I think, something like that. Dude from Watchmen. We were like, holy crap, could you imagine?
That's some insane. And this is stuff that we aren't very far from. We really aren't. When you look at the way things are right now, these are very possible things that could happen and very possible situations that humanity is going to find themselves in when technology gets there.
The one with what's her face, the chick from Jurassic World with the red hair, Ron Howard's daughter, where everything is based on your social media standing.
Oh yeah, I wish I could remember the title of that, and
I'd have to look it up, and I
don't
don't
want get anywhere like
right.
You are basically there's a class structure
right
to that. You can only get in if you have so many likes.
So it deals with like the whole concept of like influencing, right? And like and putting your. Have you ever like talked to somebody who's just like, this is for my Facebook, this is for my social media, and it's like damn well you're not that happy doing that well. But it's like hashtag, that kind of a thing. And you're like, and it's all BS. And like that episode was so great because it totally played with that concept. It was like, what if what if everybody had to create this false front in order to succeed in life? And then what happens when you just fucking stop caring? And you end up, you end up in the gutter, essentially.
Yeah. You realize that is a structure that the society has put upon you, and you don't need to follow it. But if your star rating drops from a 3.2 to a 3.1, you're not eligible for that raise, or you're not eligible to get gas.
Kicked out of your apartment.
You can't. It's a credit status as well, which is
right. What I loved about that episode was the on pins and needles, how like everyone was like on pins and needles. It was just like they had to be. Like, look, I've brought everyone coffee. I did a good thing. Like, nobody can relax. It was
4 stars. No, come on, 4 stars. Wait a second. That should have been 5.
It was such a great metaphor for what's going on in our culture right now, especially here in America. I can't speak to Europe, but that episode always stood out to me for that reason. I think what was it, Taylor Swift? That was that the it was the same season as the Anthony Mackie one where Miley Cyrus. That's what it was. Yeah, the Miley Cyrus episode was really good too. So the thing about, and this leads into season 6, the thing about Black Mirror and why we've had such fun talking about it and why I had a great time watching these episodes was there was always hyper focus on a single piece of technology, and it was asking what happens if the technology goes this way? What happens if the people using the technology go that way? What are the moral and ethical concerns here? What is our anxiety? What is the anxiety about this kind of technology? And outside of Joan is Awful, season 6 doesn't really do that. I said to you before the show started, when I was doing some Google searching on it, there was this whole thing about like, they just abandoned the central concept of this show to where now it's just a horror. It's just a horror anthology. Right, we have a comment here. Valvez BTW says, "Hey, what's up?" on Twitch. Hey, what's up, buddy? Glad you're joining us. So with that said, I don't know if you have any other thing you want to talk about with, as far as setting up season 6, but I'm going to tell you, outside of Joan is Awful and maybe what was the other one? Beyond the Sea. The rest of this kind of sucks. And I'm telling you, like the last 2 episodes were Mazzy Day and Demon 79 were a slog to get through. And like I was like half asleep during Mazzy Day. And the hilarious thing about that was I kept waiting for like, because Maisie Day, she's a photographer, and I kept waiting for something about digital photography to be the
right. You're waiting for that technology,
and it's just a fucking werewolf, and I'm like, why?
Not there.
What are we doing?
Not there.
Yeah, I was like, I think at one point I looked at who I was watching it with, and I was like, am I still on Black Mirror? Where did I fall asleep? What happened
here? Yeah. Before we start jumping into the episodes themselves, if you went to Netflix and this show had not had dropped, but was the preview was playing. You didn't press play.
Right.
The preview that it's going to show, the trailer that it's going to show is Joan is Awful. Right. And that is because it jumps right into what you expected with Black Mirror. And then there is an argument to be had, just like you said, that there is a good portion of this season that does not lean on that at all. And a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, what is this show now? And a lot of people were upset about that. But I mean, really, the only thing that I can say to defend what they did was that sometimes you run out of ideas. Now, I mean, there are only so many AIs taking over episodes that you can throw out there. And I really wonder if they just ran out of good concepts. Well, and they were okay, well, we're gonna
read you. Around January of 2020, Brooker and Jones announced their departure from House of Tomorrow. Variety reported that intellectual property issues were at the center of this change, with the series rights held by Endemol. By February of 2020, Brooker and Jones had established Broken Bones, a new production company. Netflix had arranged a long-term contract for series and other production rights with Broken Bones Company by July 2020, although rights for Black Mirror still remained with Endemol. According to Variety, this left Brooker and Jones unable to produce additional series unless new agreements were put in place. In May of 2020, interview with Radio Times, Brooker questioned whether the public mood would suit a 6th series of Black Mirror and said that he had been working on more comedic projects. That's an interesting line. Okay. A 6th series was announced by Netflix in May of 2022 to consist of more than 3 episodes. The series was produced by Broken Bones rather than House of Tomorrow. However, House of Tomorrow's new owners, Banijay, retained ownership of the program. So here's what I'm going to tell you. This is yet another example of new owners not really understanding what the appeal of something is and just kind of doing their own thing with it. And now it's the thing in name only.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. What did we have prior to this? Was it Bandersnatch? Bandersnatch was, I remember that was like the choose your own ending.
Oh my God. That fucking thing drove me nuts.
So
we had season 5 before that. Then there was Bandersnatch, and then the White Christmas and all of that.
Okay.
All right. So with that said, let's get into Joan is Awful. And the whole premise behind Joan is Awful is we meet a gal. Her name is Joan, and we watch her through her day. She's got a fiance who dotes on her. She has a job where she has to fire somebody, and in firing someone, she's like, hey, this is kind of what we're trying to do here, and you don't really fit into things, so you gotta go. And then an old lover is contacting her, and it's one of those where there was passion but not enough stability, so she kind of ran away from that. But the passion, because the new guy is stable but not the passion, and so the quandary of women. And so she goes home to stable but not passion guy, and they're watching a TV show, and it's called Joan is Awful.
It's a new Netflix series, ladies and gentlemen. Joan is Awful.
And the Streamberry, which becomes like a running gag.
Oh, that's right, Streamberry. That's right, yeah.
And so they watch the show, and Selma Hayek plays Joan, which made me very happy because so she plays Joan, and she suddenly realizes that everything that happened the day before or that day is happening in the show. It's a little more exaggerated, but it's more or less it. And which then leads to the revelation to stable boyfriend that she had been with she had been unfaithful. She had been with unstable boyfriend. And he's like,
he was really quick to accept that this was real. When you think about it, and you're seeing yourself, right? Okay, yeah, wow, this happened to me today. And you got the guy beside you, he's like, okay, yeah, right. But he
she was also kind of having a meltdown. So if she, it'd be. I mean, there was no other way to write this because we have to move the plot
I agree.
forward. But if she was cool, if she had been cool as the other side of the pillow, I don't know what this is.
Right.
But she was having a fucking conniption. So like,
I think I would too. I think her reaction was pretty legit.
Yeah.
I think him being like, oh, okay, and getting upset about what he'd just seen happen on
Mhm.
TV as to whether before verifying said thing is that had actually happened. But anyway, continue with the synopsis there.
Well, he goes to leave because like there's some shit that said, in the episode where he's like, you were unfaithful to me. You still have the hots for this guy after everything I've done for you. Facts can confirm. So he's like, she's like, prove me wrong. Give me your phone. And she's like, I don't have it. And he's like, you're full of shit. And he takes off. And so like the next day, she's like, how can they do this? So this is the meat of the episode right here. So that's your introduction. The meat of the episode is how they can't just take my life and make it a television show without my permission. And this is great because this is like the human centipede thing from South Park. Where like, how did you get the right to do this to me? I didn't sign anything. Well, you did when you clicked on the agreement to have Streamberry. When you clicked on the agreement for iTunes, which was the joke then, you signed away your likeness and everything else. And she's like, and like the lawyers tell her, like, yeah, this is ironclad. Nothing you can do.
Ironclad, baby.
Right. And so like she doesn't know what to do. And like Selma Hayek's in the show, so she's trying to get Selma Hayek's attention, and this is the best. She like eats like a bag full of cheeseburgers, goes into a church and shits all over the place.
A bag full of cheeseburgers and a ton of laxatives,
right?
And then just lets loose
and a cheerleader outfit,
penis with a penis on her forehead,
right? Because really to sell the point of I am trying to get attention. It was really brilliant. And then then the perspective shifts to Selma Hayek, which she's like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah. At first you're like, okay, well, Selma Hayek's obviously acting. No, that's not the case here.
Right.
This is an AI created show deep faking Salma's likeness onto these characters.
Okay, so we have to stop there for a second and address the fact that this is a major part of what's going on with the SAG strike. Is exactly this. It is the studios going, with artificial intelligence, we can write and produce and market and distribute film without human hand. Well,
right.
This is going to be fantastic. And the human hands are like, shit.
Yeah.
Fucking dock workers and auto workers off to the side going, welcome to the party, pal. They see the end is nigh. And this show, when you talk about like what is the brilliance of Black Mirror, it deals with the anxiety of the moment vis-a-vis current technology. And right now, there is a palpable fear that between artificial intelligence, because of artificial intelligence, we're going to have mass unemployment. People are going to lose jobs left and right, which is what you and I have been talking about for years with a variety of topics, that technology keeps finding ways to replace humans to the point where there's not going to be, we have to, as I've discussed many a times with both progressives and conservatives, we're going to have to redefine what is work, because there may not be any in the near future for us regular humans.
Exactly.
So Selma Hayek's there, and she's like, I'm not in the show, but that's my likeness, and they just had me shit in a church.
And they're like, well, you signed your rights away here. It's ironclad. So now you're like, well, what do I do? And what's funny, okay, two things about this episode already before we get into the conclusion of what happened here. But number one, the law has to catch up with artificial intelligence. And that's one thing that I think a lot of the writers and all of them are kind of supporting right now. It's like, hey, we need laws in place to regulate this stuff before it gets out of hand. There's going to be a weird Wild West of AI stuff that's happening here for a little bit. And then I think the law is going to clamp down on some things that are occurring.
I think you and I have talked about it before. I'm sure I've talked about it. I know I've talked about it on some podcasts in my 20-year history of doing this. Might have been with Robert, probably with you, about how go back to the yesteryear of the mid-90s when we jumped on AOL for the first time. The old wine bottle in the twat that I've discussed on a number of occasions. If there was ever an image that truly defined the onset of the internet, it is that image. But how Wild West the internet was.
Right.
Dude. When websites were just popping up and like they thought the model was banner ads, like banner ads were gonna, and like there were certain websites that were going for like people were becoming millionaires overnight for shit that was worthless. But people, MySpace, my God, you remember that?
Oh yeah.
So the 90s into like early 2000s, there was this, this boom period of we don't know what the internet is or what we can use it for, and motivated ingenious minds were using it for all kinds of things that nobody could think of. It was crazy. And then of course people were like, we need some fucking laws here. Like they can't have this. We cannot have just wine bottles in the twat all the time. So the propriety, sir. Like we have to have control. And you're not wrong. We're on the cusp of another. I don't need to keep saying that one phrase, but we are on the cusp of another Wild West generation of artificial intelligence doing all kinds of things no one ever thought of.
Yeah,
it's both fascinating and scary at the same time. And we talked about it on Damn You Hollywood, where there's a certain bit of schadenfreude about how you have all of these celebrities who had a lot of power and influence, and suddenly they're about to lose it because their likeness can be just auto, or you can just create a pretty person. You don't even need Tom Cruise's likeness. Just create something that looks like Tom Cruise.
The arts are going to take a huge hit to this. I mean, because of this, and that's what I honestly, I've been ever since I started learning a little bit about what was going on. I then started seeking out a little bit more, and I'm starting to realize if you go and search YouTube and just look at some of the AI right now stuff that is being developed and being used, and that is free to the people on the internet that involves artificial intelligence, your mind would be blown because
you're you're writing whole stories and putting them up as podcasts.
I know, dude.
Using
Trust me,
GPT.
It is some of the easiest way to produce content, and there is this really 30% of me feels guilty for doing that because I used to struggle. I got to write a synopsis, blah, 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 blah. Well, now all I'm doing is I'm taking my notes, throwing them in the chat. I can never get that right, into artificial intelligence and having it spit it out. And then I'm just fine tuning it. I used to labor. Like I would honestly take about, 45 minutes to do that. And now it's cut down. Now, the other part of that is like, what about the real writers out there? Like the Evan Bevins of people. There's going to be also I would say the public or the society's reaction to, is this believable or not? Is this an actual person that wrote this or not? Because I don't have to tell you I had Chat GPT write this. Right. You would have no clue. Trust me.
I think it was not that long ago. We had a conversation about robots because for a while, like that was my entire Facebook feed. was how robots are going to take over every job. And like I remember having this conversation with Melissa about teachers were going to be replaced by robots. One, they don't have sex with kids. Two, that studies find that the kids respond better to the purple dinosaur teaching them than they do the human. And it's cheaper to guess who's not unionized? Robots. Things like that. Right. Like, and again, there is no cultural or religious bias with a robot. So if you tell the robot to teach that slaves got work skills and life skills and that it wasn't all bad, they'll do it happily. True story here in Florida, by the way. If you tell the robot, teach the Bible, the robot will do it, or not teach the Bible for that matter. The robot will do it happily.
Right. It's
no questions asked.
A or B. The other thing that people will come to accept from artificial intelligence is that you can ask questions and not be judged. If I asked you a question, I'd rather, I don't know, question.
Hang on, could you imagine our entire discussion on cuties, but through ChatGPT?
Right. And the thing is that, those kind of questions, a robot's not going to judge you. And if you knew that you were talking to somebody that just had the knowledge and gave you an answer without the judgment, it's going to be more accepted. And as you talked about kids, liking the robots because, what teacher's going to judge them? Right. No, that's a robot. That's not, that as far as as far as emotional judgment, it's not going to be
Mhm.
there, and you can be comfortable with that. Go ahead.
A season or two of South Park. This has been within the last 2 years because it was fairly recent. There was a gag on South Park where every time a girl texted one of the boys, they would take the line from the girl and put it into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT would generate a response. They would just send that back to the girl because the conversation was so inane. And let me tell you how I've done that, where like I don't know what to say anymore. I'm so exhausted by this entire conversation. I just start putting the line to the ChatGPT and like, well, I feel bad about how your day that you're having, and I sympathize. Like, ugh, like good God, technology.
Yes.
We're like halfway through this episode. So once once we have like the rising action, once we've established what the conflict is, then it just becomes a buddy comedy because we move away from like the deep fake artificial intelligence of the show. They do explain that there's a supercomputer that is taking all of the information that's in the cloud about you and through video and spy cameras and stuff, and generating this show and exaggerating for effect to create drama, and it's doing it in real time. That's why like the things that happened that day were immediately on that show, and like and then they have this computer that's available to them to do that, and so then the thing becomes, well, how do we stop it? And then we meet the villain of this episode, which is the CEO of Streamberry. That's like, and I love this because it was very Matrix-like. So if you remember when they talked about the Matrix, they were like, the original Matrix was perfect. There was plenty, and everyone was happy, except that nobody was because it was too perfect. There was no conflict. People were not satisfied. Life was too easy. And so they had to wreck the Matrix and start again and create a shitty world because that people would buy. Then they would know they were real. They would accept that this was real life because life was garbage. Like, wow. First of all, like the editorial standpoint on the nature of man is brilliant in the Matrix. When with having said that, but there's a similar thing with this where like, we tried to create nice content that would make people happy, and it was soundly rejected. So we created content where people are assholes, and then people flock to it.
People loved it.
And then it made truly like Mr. Burns, like blocking out the sun with a giant umbrella moment. Look, we're gonna create this show for everyone. There's gonna be a Jesse is awful, and a Mark is awful, and a Jonas is awful, and a Lily is awful, and a Trey is awful, and a Caleb is awful, and a Kiara, whatever your kid's name is, Katana.
Katana, yeah, that's what I wanted to name her. Mindy said no.
Katana.
Yes.
These are my kids, Reptile, Katana, and fucking
Scorpion.
Scorpion, yes. Sub-Zero. Come here, Sub-Zero. Told you to fucking mow the lawn. Anyway, yes. Sorry. But like they were going to create like an endless amount of shows. And it's like, here's the thing. I totally buy that. I absolutely buy that. I like the logic and all of that, and like how like degrees we are to that being a reality is the scariest thing about this entire episode. Yeah. And then after that, it just becomes like silly.
Oh yeah. Well, which one's the real one? Who's the real? That is
actually my favorite part of this entire episode is where they find Michael Cera and he's the engineer and he's like, "You're on fictive level 1. This is real." And as it turns out, like Joan's a real person because the person playing Joan up to this point was the actress from Schitt's Creek.
Yes.
And
Annie
so
Murphy.
Yeah, and so she's like, "No, this is the real Joan." They show you the real Joan and everything. And then they're like, "You're on fictive level 1, and fictive level 1 Selma Hayek plays you." And this just goes on and on and on.
It's great.
Great. And then at the end, they blow up the computer because what else were they going to do? And,
right. And then they get arrested, but they're on and they become friends afterwards. Source Joan is the name of the actual character for Source Joan.
Yeah.
It was a good. I mean, hey, I wanted to just jump back in here real quick with number 2 because I said I had 2 things. I gave you number 1. Number 2 is that this episode hit June 15th of 2023. SAG went on strike July 14th, 2023.
What the fuck?
Yes.
Man? People's like,
They're like, wait, we gotta
little
go.
eyes flashing before their eyes.
That's crazy.
Oh
It
my God,
really,
that's so
really
good.
is, man. So this had a lot of what.
First ever spit take live on the air, by the way.
But yeah, this is something that is going to clearly the writer's strike is evidence of that. This is reality.
Yeah, they see
This
the trade
is
coming.
The potential reality of what's going to happen. One of the things that I remember hearing somebody say was about how, like, at some point in the future, I don't know if we're going to be alive, maybe as fast as this stuff is going. But at some point in the future, if you want to watch Star Wars and you yourself want to play Luke Skywalker, no problem. Just scan your face, pop in the movie, we'll let the computer do the rest, and you get your own personalized version of Star Wars. Who would play Darth Vader?
You know, it's funny. There was a conversation that took place in our group chat, and for those that don't know or whatever, we have a group chat of all the people I podcast with, and we tend to focus on a lot of debate around media, traditional media, television, movies, comic books, the kind of things that we talk about on the podcast, we talk about in the group chat. And one of the things that came up was how Nielsen ratings are fucking plummeting. And I said, well, part of the, like, cable subscriptions are plummeting, Nielsen ratings are plummeting. And one of the things that I was brought to light was how media viewership has changed. People aren't watching traditional programming anymore, whether it's streaming or not. And yes, some are. A lot of the stuff still exists, and live sports certainly do well. But if you look at, like, Jesse and I have kids between the ages of 9 and 18, so they're a good they're a good group to look at as far as what is the viewing habit of this upcoming generation, and it's YouTube and TikTok.
Exactly, dude.
It is bite-sized content that is tailor-made for their specific interest in that moment, mostly without a plot.
If me and the wife could go without for a little bit, I don't need any streaming services, and YouTube would satisfy the kids. Yeah, they would not have any problems having any of the other stuff.
Cable box. Like, I went to Spectrum and I was like, hey, I want to reduce my cable bill. And you can now watch as long as you subscribe to the cable provider, you can watch cable on an app.
Oh, through the internet. Yes, right. I know exactly what you're talking about.
If you have a Roku or an Apple TV or whatever, Amazon, I'm assuming it's on Amazon, I don't know, Amazon Fire Stick, you can watch whatever your cable provider is. You don't need a cable box. The cable box is dead, Jesse. You and I grew up with the cable box. Remember the old, like, it had like a sticker to make it look like it was wood. And when it clicked,
and had all the little switches at the top.
Right. And it looked like you were like launching a rocket. And it had 3 levels. And it's dead. Like, rest in peace, cable box. It's gone.
Yeah. But here's the thing.
Cable companies, how they're watching TV? This right here. This exactly. The Black Mirror.
There it is. The cable companies, though, aren't going to go anywhere just because they control your high-speed internet. I gotta tell you. Well,
yeah, no, I gotta tell you. So Thursday night, I'm at a concert and I get a text from Melissa. She's like, "I'm so bad." I'm like, "Why are you bad now?" She's like, "Well, Spectrum and Disney are in a fight, and I can't watch my college football game." Oh, so yes, cable is not going anywhere in a while.
Nah. What'd you say?
She's lamenting.
Okay.
So, but
I understand.
So cable is still a factor in people's lives. You said, the high-speed internet being the thing, but the way we watch TV has forever changed.
Oh,
and going
absolutely.
back to the point, going back to all the way back to Joan is Awful. The line about tailor-made for each individual to satisfy their need for viewing, I thought it really rang out. As silly and great and insightful as that episode was, that was the line that really got to me. Is we can now with the use of computers, create tailor-made entertainment for all billions of people on Earth. Everyone's got a device, and now we have a content generator that can give you exactly what you want, so that you can be the fat guy in the chair from WALL-E. That is where we're going, Jesse. That is the end of the equation right there.
I'll just be floating around looking like this.
Yeah. Well, we ain't gonna be working, I'll tell you that much.
All right, dude. All right.
All right. So this was the best. Honestly, like I could have stopped with Joan is awful. Like, you just muted yourself.
I know. My son dropped down here. He's got a DS in his hand. He's asking me questions. So I'm telling him I can't answer the questions, man.
This was honestly like I wish we had just gotten Joan is awful the movie and just called it a day, because this is a fucking downhill. It goes.
I don't know about all that. I don't know about all that.
Let's go to episode 2. And we'll settle this once and for all, like men.
All right, once and for all. I mean, is this the weakest? We could go ahead and say that this is probably the weakest season of Black Mirror, pretty easily.
Yeah, for sure.
So
the next one is Lock Henry, and so we have a couple college students, I guess, film school students, and they're and there's a boy and a girl, and the boy is from Scotland, and they have gone to visit his mom. And they're making a documentary about a guy who guards like Fabergé eggs or something along those lines. And as it turns out, his dad was a cop. The dad died amidst a killing spree. It was like psychosexual and all of that. And and the mom is still bitter about it. And the girl gets this idea like, hey, maybe that's what that should be the documentary. We should investigate this further and bring the story out in this story. And there's a great line in this episode about, do you want to make art or do you want to get paid? And that's not the line, but it's basically what she insinuates. And she says it in so few words. She's like, you have to make things people want to watch. And I'll tell you, as many years as I've been doing this, my rinky-dink little podcast here, I mean, I've kind of hit a point of I don't care anymore. Like I'm just painting art. I'm just making.
Yeah, we're having a good time. That's the main thing.
But there was a period where I kind of lost myself into trying to get ahead of the curve and create content that people would want to watch. I wanted the podcast to grow. I wanted this to be popular. I wanted this to be a secondary source of income. I wasn't a lunatic and thought it would be a primary source of income, though I did have hopes. But I was definitely one of those people, like, I wanted ads, I wanted sponsors. And so it was like, okay, well, we got to talk about The Mandalorian. We got to talk about Loki. We got to talk about, whatever the popular stuff is, because that's and I can't tell you how many times I completely whiffed on every one of these. Like, there would be things that we would do that were wildly popular that I didn't think anyone would care about. And then there was like, oh, we have to get ahead of the pack and talk about this popular thing. And nobody cared. Nobody cared.
Crickets. Yeah, crickets.
So the idea of, when you're content generators like we are, content creators, and you're trying to figure out like, well, do I do what makes me happy? And, do I do stuff that with my friends that brings joy and fulfillment to my life? Or do I try to be popular? Trying to be popular almost fucking killed my soul. It wrecked a lot of things around me. And that's why I don't do it anymore. I'm like, if I'm going to continue to spend an hour or two at night, I'm going to
do something you
I'm
enjoy.
going to talk. Yeah, I'm gonna watch the things that make me happy, and I'm gonna talk about the things that I enjoy with the people I enjoy talking about them with, and that's gonna be the end of it.
Right.
So, but that's her point to him. It was like, hey, your egg documentary is gonna maybe play at a festival, but this people will watch because basic white bitches love them some murder.
Oh yeah,
murder
they
documentaries.
Do. Yes, they do.
Boy, if there's a way to speak to white women, that would be it. So,
I just real quick, I'm in the process of watching a Peacock show. We finished the first season, and for the life of me, I can't remember, but essentially what it is it's about some people who get involved with a serial killer and create a podcast with that serial killer, and it is great. I'll find the title of it here before we get out of here, but remember that, yes, basic white bitches love them some true crime.
So that's how we get to the meat of the episode, and then it's a lot of cuts of them, doing the interviews and creating the footage and yada yada, and slowly but surely they unearth the fact that it wasn't just the one guy. The cop dad was involved, and oh, by the way, the mom's involved too. And now it's a suspense and horror thing. Oh no, you're sleeping with the enemy, and the mom's chasing her through the cornfield. It's ridiculous. I think once the mom knows she's been found out, ends up killing herself. Spoilers. The
girl ends up dying as she's trying to run away. She ends up slipping and banging her head in the creek and killing herself there accidentally.
Yeah, she drowns. And so the kid wins an award for the documentary, but at what cost?
Yeah, he ends up opening up the note that says "for your film" or something along those lines. Love your mom, and Yeah, it's very much a careful what you wish for type of story. This town had been suffering for quite a while,
Right.
and they were like, they
Now
come in there.
Now we're a tourism town because murders happened here.
Exactly. So he brought life back to the town, but yes, at what cost? He's definitely not a happy man at the end of this show. And where's the technology, Mark?
In VHS cassettes.
That is one thing you could say about this season. They do span different decades throughout here, which maybe that was their thought, was like, let's just do, because this next one, well, I don't know which one we're going up next, but Beyond the Sea takes place in like late 60s.
It's an alternative. It's an alternative history where
futuristic, retro futuristic.
Yeah, where we're like modern technology, but in the 60s.
It's kind of strange. But again, with Lock Henry, I mean, it's all about it's all about them coming back to this town, seeing that the town is suffering, thinking that, oh yeah, we can land ourselves on the map if we do this instead of this,
right?
And jump into the grizzly and then look what he wrought. Look at all the stuff that happened. Ends up finding mom and dad are serial killers.
The moral of the story is don't dip your hands in the muck and mire for fame and fortune. It will end badly for you. Like, okay, but
no, it's just a dark tale. It's just a dark tale.
Yeah.
By the way, that show, it's called Based on a True Story. So there you go.
Gotcha.
Look it up. Watch it.
The episode is entertaining enough. I didn't love it. It's certainly, I mean, like I said, there's 5 episodes here, and like the first 3 are great to okay, and those last 2, oi. So I thought this was okay. It's just one of those where I kind of watched it and I went, and I didn't realize the rest of the season was going to be equally like not based on what are the perils of technology. So at first I was like, I can forgive this because okay, so one off the beaten path is okay.
One off the beaten path. I get you.
Yeah, and then by the end of it, I'm just like, why? It wasn't just one. It wasn't just one, Jesse.
I hear you.
All right, next one. Unless you have anything else about Lock Henry.
No, go ahead.
Beyond the Sea. It's an alternative history, 1969. We have 2 astronauts, and they are able to project their consciousness into life model decoys from a space station in space. So they're doing the mission in space, but in order to be able to stay with their families and do things, they are able to project their consciousness into these life model decoys and interact as normal. A hippie cult doesn't like these things and thinks this is an abomination. And so they break into one of the astronauts' house and kill, destroy the robot and kill his family. Which then sends him into a depression. So Aaron Paul, who is the other astronaut, him and his wife have a conversation, and they're like, what if we loan him your body, your life model decoy? And he's able to kind of deal with his trauma and, walk around outside and just sort of try to, mourn the loss of his family and move forward. And so he does. And it's one of those where I sympathize kind of with the story, but it was also really obvious what was happening. You knew
third note here. My third note.
Go ahead.
Predictability. I liked what was getting. I mean, we had 2 great actors here. We had Aaron Paul and we had Josh Hartnett. Both of these guys are really accomplished, in my opinion. And this story had its moments, but man, was it predictable. That's what I hated about this episode and a couple other things I'll point out.
As Robert would say, I've seen this before and I've seen it done better. The guy fucking falls in love with another dude's wife, while he's in mourning. And the wife, is into it kind of, but then not really. And then it's a conflict. And then the guy's fighting. It's over. Lobster.
Yeah. Well, he ends up killing his. I don't know if we talked about it. You may have said it already, but I think it's Cliff, who is Aaron Paul's character, and David, whose family gets killed. And then what ends up happening at the end is when David becomes so incredibly jealous because he fell in love with, and she rejects him. And David takes over while Cliff is out on a spacewalk, essentially locking him out of the shuttle, and then proceeds to kill David's or Cliff's family. So now both of them have no family at home. And this brings me to the second point about this episode that drove me nuts is look, I just sat through an hour and like 15 minutes, and the only thing that I get to see is David throw the chair over to him when he finally comes back in, which I thought David was going to kill Cliff, and that didn't happen.
Right.
He let Cliff back in, throws a chair to him and says, take a seat or something like that. And I'm like, dude, they are going to go at it. In credits. And I'm like, bullshit. You cannot end it.
So
like
in this
that.
alternative 1969, murder's legal? like what are we doing here?
I don't
No
know.
one from fucking NASA knew what was happening? Like, come on.
Do you know? Okay. So the most obvious thing that really stuck out to me, I want to throw it to you, Mark. Doesn't mean if you missed it, doesn't matter, but I want to just see, did you see the obvious flaw in this story?
What is the obvious flaw in the story?
All right. He set me up, folks. The obvious flaw of this story is, why not just send the life model decoys into space?
That's a good point.
I mean, the humans could stay back home and be just fine, and we wouldn't have a plot on our hands, obviously, but I don't understand why it only works that way, to where the humans have to go into space, which I guess they probably like, well, probability and blah, blah, blah. We got to have somebody up there to make sure that these things in our mission could be scrapped. But I mean, just have it the other way around. You won't have to worry about people dying in space. You just have robots out there. So anyway,
I guess if the robots malfunction, but like people malfunction.
Yeah, I think people malfunctioned, didn't they? I think that happened here on this episode.
It might have.
As a matter of fact,
There might have been an error record, error message.
404 murder.
Yes. And that's it. That's the end of the season. No.
Oh, you wish. You wish.
God damn, this next one.
I'm really
day.
sorry. I'm really sorry that you kind of fell asleep in this, which is fine. I mean, I understand. It definitely is. It's not hooking you. This season's not hooking you, and that episode definitely doesn't hook you. But go ahead.
Okay, so the beginning of it, where Zazie Beetz is a what do you call the paparazzi?
Yes.
I think there's another word for it, but she's
Paparazza?
Sure. So she's paparazzi, and she's taking
pizza?
Little Caesars. So Zazie Beetz works as paparazzi, and she has like a crisis of conscience, and she stops, but she needs money. And there's this celebrity who does like a hit and run somebody over during like a filming of something, like having like a mental breakdown of some sort. And so she's like, okay, one last job, crazy payoff. If I get pictures of this celebrity possibly going through like rehab, withdrawals or whatever, I'll make a ton of money, and I don't have to do this anymore, and I don't have to wrestle with my conscience, because being paparazzi and yelling whore at people so they'll turn around, you can take their picture, is I feel yucky about this. Okay. And strong enough premise. And again, I'm thinking it's got to be something with the camera. It has to be something with digital photography. That's what we're looking at. Like, are we, as an examination of paparazzi and, internet culture and influencing culture and all of that, I was like, okay, I'm interested in this episode. And then she goes off into the hills to find the celebrity, and then they find the celebrity, and then sharp turn in Albuquerque, it's a fucking werewolf.
Doesn't sound like you fell asleep during the episode to me. That's pretty much what happens.
And at that point, it's a horror movie, and they're just running from the werewolf until they shoot the werewolf, and then we're done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what was the point of any of this?
Yeah. So I'm known to some people as the 4-star general, and the reason why is because when I go in and I log into TV Time and I rate the TV shows that I'm on, usually it's a 4 stars. Okay, if it's passable and I dug it, I didn't hate it, it's usually 4 stars.
Mm-hmm.
So the outcry against this episode was just overwhelming on TV Time. They hated it.
I don't blame them.
This is the episode that everybody was like, what is Black Mirror anymore?
Yeah.
Why is this even here? Look. Okay. Black Mirror, I understand we want to lean towards technology, blah blah blah. And I already kind of gave some excuses at the beginning about maybe they just ran out of concepts. I don't know. But what did I say? I gave Beyond the Sea a hard time about, and that was predictability. Right. You didn't fucking see the werewolf coming. You did not see it coming. You had no clue that werewolf was going to be showing up.
Here's the thing. If you tell me I want you to watch this show, it examines technology and the perils it might bring, and then you're like, and I want you to watch this episode, you're right. I'm not going to see the werewolf coming because it doesn't fit with the fucking central theme of the show, Jesse.
5 stars, ladies and gentlemen. I gave it 5 stars.
You're a lunatic. I want you to watch this show. It's about drug dealers in Baltimore. Oh no! Space robots.
Yeah, dude.
Why is Omar shooting his shotgun at Ultron bots?
Oh man!
McNulty swinging a hammer.
It was so strange. It was so strange because I'm right there with you. I'm watching the episode and I'm like, because this girl is like the person, the celebrity that did the hit and run. I thought, well, oh man, they took her to some kind of sweat lodge and they're doing some really serious, weird rehab for her.
Right.
And she's like all chained down. And that's where Zazie Beetz was like, oh man, I should go get somebody. This isn't right. While the other guys
the moral
are
of the story,
pictures.
Don't unchain people. Don't ever listen, Jesse. I've been in the King BDSM community for over a year and a half. Don't interrupt a scene. That's the rule, Jesse.
Gotcha.
Just because you think someone is chained against their will doesn't mean they are.
I see. The safe word was not uttered. So, yeah. And then all of a sudden you start to see that, she's a werewolf. So that's why I gave it 5 stars. I was like, hey, this right here, I didn't expect this at all. I wasn't expecting a werewolf, and we got this showdown. I think I wanted more scenes of the werewolf terrorizing town. That was probably about the only thing that I wanted to see more of this. But it was weird, man. It was definitely off the beaten path.
Bear, where we had a similar complaint, where we were like, we really wanted to see this bear just fuck up the whole town.
Yeah, dude.
People
Go
like at a diner eating coffee. It's like awfully cool weather we're having. Cocaine bear.
When she runs in there and she's like trying to explain to the sheriff, like, there's a werewolf. I've been the same way. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, werewolf? And that's why I liked it, because it was such a weird situation. You get to watch normal people react, and it was, I don't know. I dug it. I personally dug it. But as far as, you're right, it does not fit with the Black Mirror narrative. And I think that, it's kind of setting us up for this last one, because we went into this horror realm, and now all of a sudden, then we get into Demon 79. So I don't know if you have anything else left to say about Maisie Day.
I don't.
Well, then hit us with Demon 79. As you can see, I paid homage with my name there, Jesse 78.
There's a girl. She conjures a demon.
Indian girl. That's important. There's an Indian girl, I believe.
Sure. Indian girl. Like dot Indian, not tomahawk Indian. My son's gonna run here. That's a racism.
Native American, Dad.
So there's a Indian woman who conjures a demon, and she is ordered to murder 3 people, and she does.
You are so underselling it. It's
Go ahead, because I honestly, that's all I got.
Well, I mean, that's essentially the plot. A meek Indian woman running, trying to make a life working at the shoe store, ends up conjuring a demon accidentally because they convinced her to eat downstairs in the basement because her food stunk. But she ends up.
What if She-Hulk, but Indian and demons?
Hey, I thought it was pretty cool. The demon shows up. He's like this new demon, and he's like, "Hey, you summoned me. You've got to kill 3 people in order to avoid the apocalypse." She's like, "Oh, come on, you're kidding me now." And he's like, "No, I'm not kidding you." And then he proceeds to try and get into her. Hey, kill this guy. He's molesting his daughter. The world won't miss him if you don't do this. He's going to do this for another few years, and she does it. Right. She finally kills the guy, and so at the end, I think the fun part about this episode is like, you're playing with, is she crazy? Is she not crazy?
Mm-hmm.
And she ends up getting arrested. And the demon's like, look, you've got like 10 minutes. You got to kill somebody in this room right now, or the world is going to end.
Right.
And so she's struggling, like, should I do this? Should I not? And she doesn't. Clock strikes 12, and the fucking apocalypse happens.
It'd be funny if like the werewolf showed up then too.
The apocalypse happens. The apocalypse happens, and I like this. Now notice, I don't know if it mentions it there, but this was a Red Mirror production, which made me think obviously this is clearly horror bent instead of tech bent. But I dug it. I mean, I thought it was okay. I didn't hate it. I thought the ending was a bit different. I thought there were two ways that you come out of this, and that is she is crazy, or the apocalypse happens, and that's that's essentially what happened. I think they took a risk going that way, and both of them, like,
earlier this year, Knock at the Cabin dealt with a very similar thing. Are these people nuts, or is this real? Are they really staving off the apocalypse, or are they just crazy people?
Right.
And we didn't love Knock at the Cabin, but I'm telling you, Knock at the Cabin handled this better.
Okay. All right. They also had Batista. So,
well, it wasn't like he was coming out as Batista.
But Batista's a solid actor as far as wrestlers go. Probably the best, I would think. Yeah.
So, all right. So that is our review of Black Mirror season 6. Like I said, for me, it's kind of a 1, maybe 2 episode season, which is interesting when it's 5 episodes.
I think there's stuff here. If you don't go into this expecting technology, then you'll be okay. And you're just expecting crazy.
I would never not do Black Mirror just because it's one of those things that it's a you and me thing. It's like the David Simon stuff. It's like, oh, well, Black Mirror comes out. It's something to talk about with Jesse. But it's definitely pinging my I don't want to do this anymore button. Because if this is what it's going to be now, if it's just going to be a horror anthology with no central theme, no examination of technology, I'm not entirely sure what the draw then is for me, at least, other than your presence and an hour talking to my buddy.
There's a lot of people that feel the same way as you do. And if Netflix gets wind of that, hopefully what they will do is be like, oh, okay, we screwed up. Let's make sure we get this right next time.
If they're really running out of ideas, like, call in some people. Call in, like, people who are like philosophical futurists. Call in technology people and be like, so, we'll just have like a, call them in for a day as like consultants essentially and be like, so talk to us about what's going on in the world right now. What scares you? What scares you, futurists?
That's a great point. That I really do not think they ran out of ideas. I mean, I think I should say along the lines of, like, if they did, there are other concepts out there that are just ripe for the picking. I don't think you have not picked this tree clean. There's plenty more.
There's stuff that we all in our group chat just kind of casually talk about, and that would be ripe for, there's plenty of technology out there. And and if you sit down and do just a little bit of brainstorming, you could figure out where this could go wrong. And then it's just about crafting an entertaining story on it. So no, I'm not buying they ran out of ideas thing. I'm thinking we don't know why this is popular, but so let's just create horror. It's almost like the joke that Robert and I talk about with, there's a drawer full of screenplays, and so some executives was like, go make this movie. And we'll throw Fast and the Furious' name on there, so people will go see it. Go make this, and we'll call it Iron Man 4. Who gives a fuck? Like, that's not what these are. They just threw this didn't, especially the last 2 episodes. But I'll make the argument that 3 out of the 5 of these did not feel like Black Mirror episodes, and they were Black Mirror in name only, and that's unfortunate. But I'll tell you. Again, I could have just come on tonight and talked for an hour about Joan is awful and been perfectly happy.
There's a lot there. A lot there.
I had to cut that conversation short so we can get to this and finish in a timely fashion because we have other stuff to do tonight. But, like, in all honesty, we could have kept going. Absolutely. There was so much to talk about with Joan is awful.
I agree.
All right. With that said, that is it for our TV party tonight on Black Mirror season 6. I will do one other show this week, assuming Sean doesn't bail out on me. We're looking at Wes Anderson movies. The new one, Asteroid City, and then the Royal Tenenbaums, and what's the third one? The other third popular one, Rushmore. So yeah, I've actually never seen Rushmore or the Royal Tenenbaums, but like as a film person, I should have. So I'm gonna correct that egregious mistake, but also look at the new Asteroid City. So that's coming up this week. No Tuesday show because I'm gonna go naked swimming allegedly, or DoorDashing. One of the two. I mean, the naked swimming or door dashing. That's my life.
Don't they call that skinny dipping, or why do they call it naked swimming?
Because
instead
it'll
of
be
skinny
a clothing
dipping.
optional resort.
Oh, gotcha.
It's just like, oh my. So with that said, what do you got going on, Jesse? What AI writing projects are you doing these days?
My goodness. Well, folks, if you have a chance to subscribe to the Source Material Comics feed, you'll see a new show that I've been dropping in the past 2 weeks. It's called AI Writes. Yes, AI Writes, and not RIGHTS. I'm not there yet. But it's WRITES. And what that is just me taking a prompt, throwing it into Chat GPT, and it's comic book related usually. And here, what I've been doing is I'll come up with a crossover and have Chat GPT lay out 5 or 6 issues of this crossover, and I'll tell you what, it's very fan fiction-y. But what I love the most about doing that is I've said, okay, after I get all the story details out and I relay them to you, I bring you into the episode with a completely 100% scripted AI intro for the story itself. So you get to hear sound effects that ChatGPT suggested. You get to hear music that ChatGPT suggested, and you get to hear my voice reading exactly what ChatGPT said to create an audio ad, usually about 1 to 2 minutes long for the episode. So it's a lot of fun. Easiest content I've ever produced. It's just me and ChatGPT. We love each other. The G stands for girlfriend. You remember that?
I don't fucking doubt that for a moment. And I fucking envy you.
Oh goodness. And then there's Mark Radulich, who joined me on today's comic book show where we discussed on Source Material Supergirl, girl power. It's Supergirl getting a tour of the DC universe, ladies and gentlemen. It's a lot of fun.
Beating everybody up. Laying out all these motherfuckers.
Oh man. And then here later this week, we already recorded it, but here later this week, you can look forward to Evan Bevins and myself talking Marvel Snap. That's right. Latest season just dropped. Tomorrow, actually. So looking to get those episodes out so everybody can get a chance to listen to them early in the season. That's all I got going on right now.
All right, folks, thanks for joining us here on TV Party Tonight on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. For Jesse Starcher, I'm Mark is Awful. Be well, be safe, and behave.